Back again with a new video. I finally got in my Ukraine package, yeah, it's from Ukraine, but it's all Soviet Union items. And my goodness, weeks upon weeks of waiting. I purchased, um, I purchased these late July, and they were shipped a day later, and they got into the States about a week or two after being shipped. And they have been looping in between several distribution centers. And I was so worried that I was never going to get them. I was so worried because I to me it was a huge find. Um, Individual cards or issues of footballers are just not known from the Soviet Union during this time period. They're just nobody has ever posted anything, shown off anything, and to my knowledge, this is the first time. And so for me, probably my biggest find for the hobby. Um, I have a few other ideas for future finds for things I'm currently looking for, but I'm gonna keep those to myself for right now. The only thing that would make this better was if Lev Yashin was somewhere in this issue, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about my reasoning of why he might not be, of why he's not shown, or we'll talk about it. We'll talk about my research. And so starting off are these small cutouts or cards. They seem to be hand cut. On the back, there's clear as day, evidence that these were glued somewhere. But yeah, a bunch of masters of the sports footballers for the Soviet Union. So if you know anything about how they congratulate their athletes, they will grant them the title of master of the sport. And so there's thousands because they do it across all sports, across tournaments and whatever. Anybody who has gained fame for Russia. And so I believe these are sometime in the late 40s because they all show players and future managers and coaches using a young picture. They all got their masters of the sport in the early 30s or late in the 30s or late 40s. And some of these guys stopped their entire career in the late 40s. So I believe that these are dated sometime before 1950, definitely before 1958, which is when you start seeing Soviet Union players in international issues. So this is Boris Arkadiev, the first coach of the Soviet Union national team. He was actually stripped of his merit, his from the 1952 Olympic game between the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia, which Yugoslavia won. So I have never seen anything like these issues. I will probably never see anything of the sort ever again. Because these aren't, it wasn't a false deal because I believe that my contact is very genuine. Hopefully I will be doing another deal in the future. But yeah, so this is Mikhail Yakushin, Yakushin. I'm going to murder the pronunciation on these, but I had to translate everything from the Russian on the card, and so I have it on a Word document to my right. He was a Russian footballer and a field hockey player. He was later a manager of Dynamo Moscow and the USSR. This one might be my favorite out of these individual cards. So this is a guy named Boris Paichadzev, Paichadze. He was a Soviet and a Georgian football player. He played for FC Dynamo Tbilisi, Tbilisi. Um, the largest stadium in Georgia is named after this player. In 2001, he was voted the best Georgian footballer of the 20th century. So that one's my favorite. Ponomarev, he won the Soviet Cup in 1949 with Torpedo Moscow and scored 152 goals in the Soviet top league. He was the top scorer of the league in 1946. He spent the last 2 seasons of his playing career in Stalino, where he captained the team to the 3rd place in the Soviet top league in 1951, their highest league finish thus far. Akimov, he was a Soviet football goalkeeper and honored master of the sports in 1940. These being, late 40s, they're probably more rare. I have no clue what these are because on some of them you can see like a dotted line. But honestly, I don't know. Who knows? And I will probably never find out. They could be a part of a large postcard issue, one I've never seen. A lot of these guys I've never seen on a postcard anyways, because there's several late 40s issues of postals, but those are usually of a team. It's just a picture of a team, either Moscow or Spartak or Tbilisi or CSVA or CSKA, whatever Russian team that is. But yeah, this is Anatoly Akimov. No, this is Gregory Fedotov. Was a Russian and Soviet professional footballer and manager who played as a forward. He scored a bunch of goals, but there wasn't much information. I am still learning. Soviet football history, but I saw these. I knew that I needed to get them. They were cheap. They were, I think, 50 euros for this entire lot that I'm showing. The shipping was more. This is Sokolov. He was a champion of the USSR in 1938, 39. USSR Championship bronze medalist in 1940, 48, and 49. He was the winner of the USSR Cup in 38, 39, 46, 47, and 50. And he was a USSR Cup finalist in 48. All for Moscow Spartak. And then the last one, Konstantin Melinin was a Soviet footballer, midfielder, and honored master of the sports of the USSR, champion of the 3rd Summer Workers' Olympics in Antwerp in 1937. So all the backs are thrashed. Who knows what these were a part of? I don't know. It seems like they were glued into something because it seems that they were cut up and then glued in. Because here on one example, you can see a dotted line. So I don't know. They're thicker cardboard. I just dropped one. But yeah, I don't know. That they will get put into plastic holders and labeled at a later date. I have a whole pile. I need to buy more. I actually ran out a while back. I have a whole pile of sleeves that I need to put into holders and label. So my favorite purchase was this. So my theory, this is not complete. I think that this was I think this was a few players longer, and at some point since 1956, it was it broke apart, and you know a player or two has gone missing because Lev Yashin. I'm almost certain Lev Yashin was a part of this fold out. Um, I am pretty sure this was printed in the October of 1956 to commemorate the Soviet Union's win during the Summer Olympics in 1956. I know that they were printed in 1956 because it says the date. 10.7-56. So this is a in-country issue of footballers, individual. It's still a team setting, but it shows the footballers individually in a fold out. So 1956 Russian item showing the top players, and yeah, so we have Kletskov and Igor Nito. So there's the Nito. He was one of the reasons why I really wanted this really badly. His earliest issue is, I'm guessing, the 1952-54 Dutch album. That's still, I am starting to be convinced that it's definitely a late 1954 album. I'm starting to get convinced that Dutch album is late 54. I started researching the set today some more, and I am certain that it's gotta be late 54. Because a bunch of the players popped off during the 52 Olympics, but the teams don't align with the 52 Olympics. Like, a bunch of them didn't play. A lot of them did play, but a lot of the players, I don't know. It's really weird. Maybe the translation for some of the players were wonky. I don't know. It's a different conversation on a different day. We might never know when that album was printed. It was definitely early 50s at some point. But there's Nito. Super happy to have that. Here is Boris Rosinski on the left, and then Valentinin Ivanov on the right. This would be his earliest issue known. Well, actually, I think he might also appear in the Dutch issue. But I would much rather have an in-country issue of both players. And so Ivanov was a Russian footballer who played as a midfielder. He was the co-leading scorer of the 1962 World Cup and the co-1960 European Nations Cup top scorer. Ivanov appeared 59 times for the Soviet Union, scoring 26 goals. He is the Soviet national footballers team's third highest goal scorer of all time, behind only Oleg Blokhin and Oleg Prostasov, who are both after 1970. One of the finest Russian players ever, Ivanov was noted for his pace, dribbling quality, and technical ability. And then, so I'm almost certain that these were once attached to this. The Netto is the only one with the stamp. I think the stamp was only on this because these were all attached, and I am certain that at some point there was a Stalin, not a Stalin, a Lev Yashin on this. It's blank back. It's about 8 inches across. Not 8 inches. It's about a foot across. Probably more than a foot. But I think it's so cool, and I want to get it protected. And it'll definitely be in the background. Going through the players, I have them listed. So Anatoly Bashishkin. That's the first player. When I was buying this, I actually thought that could have been Yashin, but I don't think it's him. I'm almost certain it's not him. It's translated and it's not his name. But this player was a Soviet-Russian footballer in the 40s and 50s, and a football coach later. He played as a central defender, and he was the captain of the Soviet Union at the 1952 Olympics. But following their politically embarrassing defeat to Yugoslavia, which we talked about earlier, he was stripped of the captaincy. He won USSR gold medals 5 times, 4 times with CDKA in 47, 48, 50, and 51, and once with Spartak in 53. The Soviet Cup 3 times in 48, 51, and 55. And then next you have a player named Permanov, and then Solnikov, Vladimir Reshkin, and then the next player of note, Anatoly Ian. He earned 31 caps and scored 16 goals. For the Soviet Union, from 1952 to 59, he earned an Olympic gold medal at the 56 Summer Olympics, scoring the game-winning goal of the gold medal match, and also participated in the 58 FIFA World Cup. He also scored the first goal in the history of the UEFA European Championship, scoring a goal 4 minutes into a qualifying game against Hungary in 58. Let's see. Next is a player named Fedeskov, and then Anatoly Parkyunov, and then the next player of note for my collection is a defender named Mihail Ogankov. He was in the 50s and 60s. He's played as a left back for Spartak Moscow, according to the footballer Nikita Simonin. He was the best Soviet fullback of all time. All this information I got, of course, from Wikipedia. The next player note, which is the main reason I wanted this item so badly, was Edward Strolonov, and there's a bunch of information on him. He was a forward for Torpedo Moscow and the Soviet national team during the 50s and 60s, a powerful and skillful attacking player. He scored the 4th highest number of goals for the Soviet Union, has been called the greatest outfield player Russia has ever produced. He is sometimes dubbed the Russian Pele. However, he probably would have held the scoring record if he was actually placed in prison between his football career from 1958 till 65, I think, for a total of 6 years. Or 7 years. And there's a bunch of conspiracy around his arrest. He had made enemies with some political leaders, and it just, it seemed off. Whether or not what he did, who knows. But yeah. And then the last guy, his name is Anatoly Maslinkin. So they're all blank backs. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got to talk about. That's actually not true. The same day I got this package in, I actually got in another item that shows a player from Ukraine, funny enough. For the life of me, I'm actually spacing on his name. How Shevchenko. So his earliest card, I'm pretty sure there are 2 unlicensed Ukraine issues of him that show him in his 1998 club in Ukraine, which was Dynamo Kiev. So he played there from 93 to 99. I'm pretty sure there's an actual 98 issue, which would be his rookie. But a lot of people claim that this is his rookie, which has him in the Milan jersey, which he played starting in 99. So this cannot be later or earlier than 99. But this was €5. So that's it. That's all I got to talk about. If you guys have any questions with what I showed, yeah, just hit me up in the Discord or YouTube comments. Peace.